Hello, and welcome back to the definitive Starship review series without access to a proper table. But today, we are going to be looking at the USS Defiant to celebrate the return of Odo with his cameo in Prodigy, the first major cameo of a Deep Space Nine character in Star Trek history, long overdue. Ignoring, of course, the TNG cameos, because let's face it, those weren't references, those were advertisements. At least that's what we'll call it. We won't say that I put this on the schedule, realize that the DS9 anniversary was 2 weeks ago, and then coincidentally we had an Odo and Prodigy, and it was kind of too late to reschedule the Sona, because I already made reference to... I timestamped it. I told myself I wouldn't timestamp these, but I did. But yes, anyway, before we get into what I fondly refer to as the chonky plastic boy, I have to say that I am part of the Eaglemoss affiliate program, which means that if you choose to purchase this model because of this video, there's a link in the description. That is an affiliate link, which means I will get a 7% commission on the sale of this model. I'm allowed to say whatever the heck I want about these models, as you could probably tell by the phrase chonky plastic boy, or whatever I said, but just be aware there is a monetary incentive for me to tell you to go buy these models. For a size comparison, you should see some familiar faces because the Defiant is a very common size I will use a lot. Enterprise-wise is about the same length as the Enterprise J. I think the J is technically a little bit longer from tip to tip, but it's very close. Special edition wise, I went with the Defiant, which you can't see, because these are, again, very close to size, and even you can see wingspan, why I went for the Tilt-A-Flyer. I think I said Defiant the first time. It's hard to tell when they're layered on top of each other because, of course, perspective, but it's hard to get them side by side. They are about the same length. Over in the world of Discovery, it is pretty close to the size of the USS Brawn. I mean, it's a very standard special size they go for a lot. So, you know, it's basically the Eaglemoss Special Edition size. Over in the Universe collection, it is Zhang He length. So, yep, one of the bigger models, a nice big XL. Yes, big chonky plastic boy, as I so diplomatically put it. Feeling it in my hands, I actually think it's more metal than I used to think it was. I'm pretty sure this entire main body is metal. It's cold. Usually how I tell is plastic doesn't get cold, metal does, so I must have gotten this in the summer. The nacelle wingy bits are plastic. In fact, this one right on the camera actually feels a little bit loose. This left one is really solid. But the neck is plastic, and as I just jiggled it, I will address it now. Yes, this neck does wiggle around a lot. There's just kind of a one point of connection. You can't rotate it all the way. I think there is something in the joint that's stopping it. It's not hitting the sides of the metal body. And, you know, if it's just sitting there, it's fine. If you're moving it around, if you feel it, like, I could break this off if I wanted to. It's not going to fall off on its own, but just, I could snap that off easily. And I've seen it snapped off, like if it falls off its shelf or something, I would not be confident in that. I mean, it's like a loose tooth is what it really is, you know? You could pull it out, but it is in there, it's just loose. But these nacelles are much more firmer. Again, I probably could break it if I wanted to, but, you know, I could break a lot of these models if I really wanted to. But yeah, what I was saying before, this is just like basically a little plastic pole or joint in there, just the one point of connection. But if you're just sitting it on the model, it's got a good stand. It's not gonna fall off of this stand. It'll snap before the model falls out. So that's great for a model like this, especially with it being so heavy. Funny enough, this little warhead, it's not the bridge. I always thought it was the bridge, and it always feels like the bridge. This is actually the bridge. But this little warhead is supposed to detach, well, it's a warhead. It's basically like a suicide missile or something. It's also how they dock to Deep Space Nines. We don't really question that. I guess it kind of makes sense that it would be a bit loose, but I mean, really, you'd probably want that to be a bit stronger. Everything else about this model, though, is great. The Defiant isn't the largest ship, of course. She's a tough little ship, so you can really get all the detail in there at this scale. It doesn't really feel like there's more you would add, and it doesn't really feel like there's anything missing. It's the perfect size. One of those models. You can see you've got the registry all around, 74205, a number I totally definitely know off the top of my head. It's got all its little details. It's Aztecing in the paneling, as this era of Star Trek tended to do. Impulsy crystals? Never really known what they are, but they are on there. And you've got all the nice panel working on the bottom. You've got the bumps, the rims with the windows. I think the Defiant's only like 4 or 5 decks, something like that. I'm not quite too sure. The nice little defended bridge, not as defended as the Equinox, but you do have that nice detailing. You can see the bridge, you can get the scale, and so that is always lovely. And it's even got the little red and green classic lights. Front view, you've got little, I assume some sort of phaser, maybe torpedo thing. I've never actually noticed those sticky out bits on the Defiant before, but they're on both sides, so definitely not excess factory plastic. Nice little nacelle view of the glowing red. I suppose you could say that maybe you could paint or put a bit more detail there. I don't know what it looks like on the screen, but the red does distract it quite nicely. And then the grate in the deflector dish is actually a transparent plastic, and it does have a nice effect. It really looks nice when you go up and scrutinize that, but as you'd normally look at it, it just gives it a nice little glow and depth to it without having to light it up. And of course, these little gaps, divides, divots here, whatever you want to call them, they look very nice. The Defiant has always very distinctive. Because of that very, very dark purple, I guess these bits use it well. Really makes it pop. I like how that looks. And then the back of the nacelles, you've got a transparent plastic. There's plastic right behind this outer one, but the inner ones are a full, darker, completely hollow. You can tell looking in there. I've just noticed as well, you've got these little holes in the Defiant. Not sure what that is, but they are a little detail that's there. And of course, nice, if we start looking at the detailing work, the close-ups, you can see there's a lot of little lines and bumps all over the place. One thing I noticed when I was going through the markings is you got these gratings, but also little gratings there. So it's one of those ships where, there are more detailed ships than the Defiant, Voyager, stuff like that. The Enterprise E, maybe. But the Defiant does still have quite a lot of detail. And it's one where stuff like that, the little grating next to the registry, really tell you that all of the detail is here. And maybe it isn't if you did a scene by scene. It's like, oh, there's like a little blue panel right there. But one of those models, you look at that and you go, yeah, that's the Defiant, all the details there. I'm happy with it. I think the coloring they chose for this model is very nice as well. The blues aren't too aggressively blue. Like I mentioned that problem in the mini Enterprise D. These golds are nice, like nothing's really overpowering, but everything highlights the golds, the reds, the purple, everything highlights as it should. And it's just a very well-made model, and large, very large for the XL, a hero ship of course. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I've also just realized, it's been a while since I've done a review like this, I should get out the Little Defiant and compare it, and thank you to whoever makes these labels, so I could just go and get it in 15 seconds flat. Little Defiant is actually very solid, slightly darker blues in the dark blue, but other than that, the colors seem pretty similar. The brown is a bit paler. I'm not noticing any real detail that the XL has, the small doesn't. Those specific grates I pointed out on the side are not present on the small, that's to be expected. The small one does have the problem with the jiggly warhead, a little bit sturdier, and the nacelles both feel just a tiny bit sturdier. But, I mean, I can hold this Defiant by the nacelles. They're not bad, you can just kind of feel, especially for me, this left one isn't as solid as some other things. So yeah, if you're really concerned about money, actually, the small version, I would say is perfectly fine. You'll be happy with it. I think I like the blue on the XL version better, but it's hardly like a model-breaking thing on the small one. But they both have the same amount of detail. I think it is a bit better because it's not as closely spaced on the XL. It doesn't look as busy as maybe the small one perhaps does. But if you own the small one, it's a great thing to figure out what you're going to get from the big one. Just this, bigger, slightly nicer colors. With that, I think we've covered this model quite nicely, so I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions about this model, just ask me in the description below. If you want me to review a specific model, just ask me. I'll cover it when I can if I have the model, and if I don't, you'll probably put it kinda high on my buy next list. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time!